This is a free sample of the book Benefit from Your Breakup by Cairo, Copeland. First half of this book is posted right here on YouTube, free for everyone to listen to. If you like this content and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/breakup. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/breakup. Chapter 3. Why she's acting so cold. Have you ever wondered why it is that a woman can move on from a failed relationship, particularly when she initiated the breakup, and go about her life acting as if you never existed? There is even a scientific explanation for this. Rollo Tomassi of The Rational Male calls it the war brides syndrome. During tribal times, one tribe would conquer another, kill all the men and keep the women for themselves. In order to survive, the women needed to learn to forget all about their previous lovers and bond with their captors. A mechanism was developed in their minds to cope with it, and evolution has made it stick with them throughout thousands of years. This is how she can act so indifferent to you after the breakup, like you were never a part of her life. Yes, there is solipsism, sometimes there's even narcissism, but this behavior is deeply rooted in their nature because they needed it as a survival mechanism. From the Stone Age to the 19th century, they were treated like property and had to develop a resilience to being passed around like prizes to the victors of war. Out of necessity, they needed a way to disassociate from connections that carried the potential for great pain. For example, a woman could lose a child, which is one of the greatest emotional investments she can make. Many women that lose children they don't even get the chance to know through miscarriage are greatly harmed emotionally by it, but they still manage to move on. How? Through this mechanism. Males do not have something analogous like this in their lives because we've not needed to develop it. Often, males were happy to die in war, so very few survive with the need to overcome the pains of losing deep emotional connections. In fact, the ones that do survive from conditions like survivor's guilt and PTSD end up having very difficult lives later on. Look who has a harder time dealing with these conditions. It seems like quite the opposite you would expect. Men should be more stoic and rational about handling their life's problems, but the truth is they're more fragile with traumas. Males were made for fighting and defending. They'd rather die than serve an overpowering aggressor, so they often did. But women were valued by both their hometown heroes and their distant enemies. As Stockholm Syndrome, more prevalent in women, allows a victim to bond with their captors, a war bride syndrome allows them to forget all about who they were captured from. Forgetting about their fallen lovers was crucial for them to bond with their captors and move on to having a happier existence. The TV series Troy, Fall of a City, demonstrates this perfectly. Watch how Helen bounces back and forth from Menelaus to Paris to Achilles, back to Paris, and finally back to Menelaus with such ease. She does so because she has to. There's no way she could stand up for herself against such overpowering men. She must submit to them. Part of finding the ability to submit to these foes is her ability to erase her memories and emotions of her last lover. Because males are the disposable sex, we're disposed of so easily. Women are doing what has allowed them to survive throughout the ages. Sure, it's solipsistic, but at the root of this self-important psychology is survival. Much of what guys complain about when it comes to a woman's cold indifference post-breakup is this survival mechanism. And of course, the world has made it more painful for males because of the fempowerment mandate that says, "Girl, you must never do anything for the express pleasure of a man, he's gotta do everything for you." Entitlement conditioning of women when they say, "You go girl, do what's best for you." Social conventions that excuse their bad behavior. It's practically illegal to hold a woman accountable for her actions, and the endless line of replacement options, thanks to the simps that flatter her all day long on social media. Bear in mind, while this will inspire a lot of black pill anger, it is hardly a calculated move by women. They don't know they do this because survival mechanisms are just like breathing. You do them without thinking about them. So they'd likely deny they do it and probably get offended at the accusation. Jason felt this inconsiderate indifference from Katie, and it drove him mad. When he'd see Katie again at dance class and she'd ignore him, pretend he wasn't there, or even pretend he never was ever there, All the emotional investment he made in her was zeroed out, like watching life savings evaporate in a bad mix of bankrupted stocks. Years of labor and sacrifice erased. This is what drives many men to seek vengeance. They'll commit the acts of a stalker and risk losing what they've built their lives up to be, all for the sake of getting to show her. Some even commit the more tragic act of suicide, like the Marilyn Manson song, "We are the nobodies, want to be somebodies. When we're dead, you'll know just who we are." But never does this accomplish anything. Many suicidal fellows are under the impression that if they do something big and loud enough, she'll realize the error of her ways and spend the rest of her life living in guilt, a punishment fitting for her deed of making him spend the remainder of his life in loneliness and misery. But she never does. In fact, after his death by his own hands, he's called selfish. "He was so inconsiderate to take his own life," they'll say. "Look at the pain he caused others." And this female primary social order we live in will never pin responsibility on her for his premature passing. It will instead give her a free pass. A few days go by, he's forgotten about. The obituary's ink fades from the collective conscious of the community. This ugly truth overflows hearts with hate, inspires MGTOWs, and birthed the black pill. I fully understand their anger. I don't agree with this social imperative of banning all compassion for men in pain, but I don't make these social imperatives, nor can I change them, and neither can you. We can only acknowledge them as reality and adjust our lives accordingly. All negative emotions you face will be caused by a common theme: resistance to acknowledging and accepting reality. Anger, depression, frustration, and grief can be tuned down by first acknowledging the reality they create. And the same is true for social imperatives that make them a reality. But what are we to do instead? The world and the woman couldn't give a shit less if you're dead. In fact, they'd probably be relieved. The world has one less toxic male, and the woman has one less stalker. That is the script they follow word for word. Your best move is to burn the script, page for page, and rewrite your own. Instead of killing yourself, do the opposite. Live your best life. Main takeaway: you must prepare yourself to mimic her mindset. This means you will erase all memories of her, good and bad, as well as the emotions associated with those memories, which I understand is incredibly difficult to do, but I will show you how. But first, you must dismiss the idea that any act of vengeance will have any meaning. This means any attempts to make her jealous by rubbing other women in her face are nothing but wasted energy. More importantly, suicide will not teach her a thing. She'll hear about it and think, "Well, I sure am glad I made the right decision to dump his ass. I understand that guns, nooses, and pills look very appealing right now, but that's only because you're comparing them to a life of present distress. As you read on and learn how to cure that distress, you'll start to build a life that exceeds the amount of joy you had even at the highest of highs in your past relationship. Those friendly-looking death devices will have no appeal for you then." Thank you for listening to this free sample of the book Benefit from Your Breakup by Cairo Copeland. If you enjoyed it and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/breakup. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/breakup.